In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Has anyone ever told you the story of the Prophet's multiple marriages? In this video, I will discuss the Islamic view of marriage and why the Prophet had multiple wives. Who did he marry, and who were they? Join me as I tell you an interesting story from the history of Islam. Marriage is very sacred from the perspective of Islam, and Muslims believe that God has placed sexual instinct in their nature so that the human race can continue. However, Islam recommends marriage, which is legal, to satisfy sexual instincts. In a legal marriage in Islam, the man agrees to provide alimony to the woman during their life together. Liquidation means providing her with food, clothing, and a comfortable life. And the woman undertakes to be by the man's side and provide him with a life full of peace. And the man and woman move forward with their lives together and in consultation. If a man and a woman cannot live together and want to separate, the man is obliged to give the woman a dowry. Dowry means a sum of money that is a gift and support for the woman, and a Muslim woman can apply for a dowry through the law. We have 3 views on marriage. First, we practice asceticism in solitude and do not seek to satisfy sexual instincts. This causes many mental and physical diseases. Secondly, we can have sex with anyone we want, which also causes psychosis and many diseases. Thirdly, Islam believes that we should marry legally, grow spiritually, and stay away from all kinds of diseases. But what was the story of the Prophet's multiple marriages? The Prophet married Khadijah at the age of 25, whose marriage story I have described in previous videos, and he did not marry any woman until he was 50, while in his time, men each had 10 wives. So it cannot be said that the Prophet was a lustful man because he married only one woman in his prime. After Khadijah's death, the Prophet married other women. The main reason for the Prophet's marriage was to support their widows and orphans and to create unity between the tribes until they accepted Islam. The Arabs had a special custom that if they became related to someone, they would not fight or quarrel with them, and this was very useful for the spread of Islam. The Prophet had only one child, his daughter Fatima, whose birth story I have described in previous videos. That is why many elders wanted to give their daughter to the Prophet so that he could have a son from her, and then the Prophet would rule over them. A message came from God. All your wives are barren and unable to have children. Only one of them, named Mari, gave birth to a son, whom they named Ibrahim, and Ibrahim died at the age of 1. Stay with me as I tell you the story of the Prophet's wives. The Prophet's first marriage was to Mrs. Sauda. Sauda had lost her husband and could no longer return to her family and relatives in Quraysh because they were torturing and harassing her for converting to Islam, so the Prophet married Mrs. Sauda to take care of her. Another marriage of the Prophet was to marry Salama. Salama's husband had been killed in the Battle of Uhud and had many children who had become orphans, and the Prophet married Salama to take care of his orphans. And Salama is one of the great and influential figures in history, from whom many hadiths have been narrated. Aisha, the daughter of Abu Bakr, was from a tribe that the Prophet had enmity with, and with the Prophet's marriage to Aisha, the gloom and enmity were resolved, and their tribe accepted Islam, and Aisha was the only virgin who married the Prophet, and the rest of the Prophet's wives had previously been married once or more. The story of the marriage of Hafsa, the daughter of Umar ibn al-Khattab, was like this. After the death of his wife, Umar suggested that the Prophet marry his daughter, and if the Prophet did not accept, the Prophet agreed to marry her as a form of humiliation for Hafsa. One of the Prophet's controversial marriages, which was carried out according to the Quran, was his marriage to his cousin Zainab. To break the tradition that a person can marry his divorced, adopted son's wife. Because Zainab's previous wife was the Prophet's adopted son, Zayd, if this marriage had not taken place, many problems would have arisen after the Prophet. Another of the Prophet's marriages was to marry the daughter of Abu Sufyan, which caused the leaders of Quraysh to compromise with the Prophet. And an interesting point that you should know is that all marriages were ordered by God to spread Islam and support the poor, and in the last years of the Prophet's life, God forbade him from marrying. My dear friends, in the next video, I will tell you one of the most controversial challenges of the Prophet. Stay with me.